How's it going, everybody? My name is DuShaun Williams. Welcome to Gaming Over 30. I'm here with X and Chris. And boys, I do have a question for y'all. And don't rush to answer. It's all good. We can take our time. What is the optimal time or length a game should be? Just not even like a price point. Just say how long should a game be to say you are completely satisfied? Like, what's your golden number?
I think in my older age, a golden number is like 10 to 20 hours. Gives me enough time to get through the game, go through the story or whatever else I need to do with it and stuff like that. And if I want to do all the extra stuff that probably is going to last a little bit longer, I can go ahead and do it. And it's within a minimal time with that during my busy life.
What
I'm
about
trying to
you, X?
milk every hour I can get out of it. To me, it depends on the genre. Like Cyberpunk, I love the hell out of that game. So if I can get, it was well, not initially, but it's worth the price now. So yeah, if I can milk 30, 40, as many hours I can get out of it, that's what I'm gonna get out of it. If it's a short linear type story, or it's like play it from beginning to end, so long as it satisfies me, story wise, I can do beginning and conclusion. It's like 20 hours. But like I said, it all depends on the genre. Is it indie? Is it AAA? Is it am I expecting as much?
I think for me, like I'm kind of with Chris in it. Like I think my perfect time is between that 10 and 20, so probably 15. Like it's as long as like you think something should take to do with like some buffer. I think 15 is just a great number when it comes to like how long you should spend on the game just normally. And then like I like side content. I like being able to do a lot of side quests and all that. But I do like it when like the main story itself is not as long.
Mm.
And I kind of thought about this when I was playing Assassin's Creed. Like I went ahead and I beat it, and it's the shortest probably of all Assassin's Creeds right now, at least from like the last 3 years where they were like more Witcher RPG types, and the last one clocks in at like 61 hours to kind of complete his main story. And this one just relatively just went down to 20. It was all like, oh, okay, like I say, like I know I did it shorter. I know some people they're monsters. They probably did it in 12, but it was like, well, you know what? This was a good taste. This I was fed well. I was able to kind of get a lot about it. I only felt a little bit like, maybe this is repetitive, but I think the 20-hour worked out really good. And I remember last year, started this year, and all that. I played a lot of games that just weren't as long that I truly enjoyed. But I think we're getting into a time where like we're wondering where that middle ground is when it comes to paying for like a $70 game, $40 game, $28 game. Like how long should they be to get the worth? And while I was okay with the $70 game, well, this one was 50, I think, 50, $60 for Assassin's Creed Mirage. And I think it was like $20. I was like, oh, that's great. And I thought, well, would I have minded if it was $70 for that same? And so I kind of wanted to kind of ask y'all as the question for today, like, what is that price for a $70 game? Like, what is that? How long should a game be for $70 for you to feel like, okay, this is the golden number. If it could entertain me for this long, truly entertain me, then I think it's worth it.
It's a hard question to like kind of put it down into a bubble like that. I think because at least for me, when it comes to video games and stuff like that, I will pay a good amount of price, even like the 70 price paid dollar point, if it's gonna be very enjoyable for me for the time that I have the video game. Like as long as like it's not super glitchy, it's has a really good gameplay that goes along with it, and has at least a decent story for me. And it's cost $70. I'm willing to pay the money at full price if it's gonna be something like that, especially when I'm really interested in the game that's coming out. But when it comes to a game that I might not be so much interested in, and you see possibly bugs that might be going on with it and stuff like that, and see other issues that like go through it for the reviews and stuff like that, that's when I usually try to wait to see if I'm going to purchase it so I can go ahead and just get it at a discounted rate, because it's like, you know what, that game looks like I want to play it, but I personally don't feel like I'm going to pay that much money for it because of all the issues that it has that are going to bother me. And I'm the first person here, probably out of all of us, to just jump out and stop playing a game and never finish it. So I don't want to spend my $70 on the game if I know a glitch is going to bother me, a gameplay mechanic and it's going to bother me and stuff like that. I'll go, you know what? I'll wait on that one, see if I can get it on a cheaper price, and then I'll make sure I spend that $70 on something that I know I'm going to actually at least enjoy and take my time with it. Even if I don't end up finishing it, at least I really enjoyed my entire time with the game while playing it.
All right, cool. And there are some times where it's like it would be hard for me to kind of finish a game, and it's okay. There's one game this year so far that it's like I have to go back to it just because it probably wasn't the type of game for me and stuff like that. But I don't know. So like even then, like you couldn't really put like a number on it, like to you, like there it just be too hard.
It's hard to do it, but if you're going to sell me like a 7-hour game, then for $70, it's got to be like everything in it's got to be mind-blowingly really well. You're gonna have to show me some really good graphics, some really good voice acting, as well as some really really good gameplay which is so good to play that I go, okay, yeah, I'll spend the money for this. This I'm fine with this, even though it's a short amount of time that I played with it. To me, my money's well spent in that game. I could see how it'd be so much harder for other people to try and look into that, and so that's why my initial answer is between the 10 to 20 hours, because at least 10 gives you a good amount of time with the game, and then you usually have other things that you could try to get in the game, whether it's either just achievements, trophies, or side quests and stuff like that, or just doing a full collectible if it's like a collectathon type of game. So 10 to 20 is like the best range where you're gonna get your money's worth overall, like my overall answer. But for me, I could probably do around 7 hours if the gameplay and the story are just like top notch in a good way. Then I'm like, all right, cool. Like that game blew my mind. It was short, but dude, that blew my mind, so I'm cool with it.
What do you think about X?
I mean, for $70, 7 hours? Nah, I ain't playing that. That's why to me it was one of those things where it depends on genre. If I can come back, if I'm paying full price $70, then I want to have some kind of level of replayability. So I want to be able to play it over and over again, or a new game plus, or anything like that. That's why I mentioned like Cyberpunk, or what's another one? Like a Dragon, or even Persona. Like, yeah, it's kind of linear, but there's different paths you can take. You're playing the same game, but you're getting a different story or different options along the way. So that's why it adds to the number of hours I expect from those games. Now, if you're playing something that's, like I said, Call of Duty, it's not exactly a story thing, but you're going to be playing the heck out of it. You're going to be playing it over and over again through multiplayer. You're not expecting anything different story wise, but you're definitely going to get season passes and all the microtransaction stuff that comes with it nowadays. But you're still spending time in the game, and that's where the money and the value come to me. Are you still spending time in the game and getting as much out of it as you paid for? Now, there's indie games like Bastion, or the stuff from Supergiant, or even the one we were looking up before we started this thing, Mark of the Ninja, where I think it's like, 30 or 20, $30, something like that. I don't remember how much I paid for it, but it's a fun game. It's $30. Why not? You get to play it and you have fun, and it only lasts a couple hours, 10 hours maybe at tops since I last played it. And then there's like the Ascent. I still haven't beat that game, and I'm still having a lot of fun running around and shooting up everything and catching story as I get along with it. And that's, I think, at full price. I forgot how much the Ascent is at full price, but it's a fun game. I got it on sale, so I can't really complain too much. But like it's still a fun game. So for $70, I expect a lot longer than 7 hours. I'll tell you that much. Like I work hard, and those $70 didn't come easy. So I expect the same thing from playing that game.
But I feel like multiplayer kind of gets a pass on the question in a way, because it's really hard. Because like if a multiplayer is good, it's going to be in the 100 hours. If it's decent, 50, depending on if you got the boys or if you got people that you're playing with. Like if it's like by yourself, probably not too much.
Yeah.
Like if it's like, oh, I got 20 hours out of this multiplayer, it's more like, oh, I have my fill, but it's just not something I can see myself keep playing. Like I feel like multiplayer in itself, like even when they do have a storyline, as much as like storylines in a lot of like the multiplayer games to just kind of extend it, I also know that they're not going to put the same amount of effort, right? Like what was it, Marvel's Capcom Ultimate or Marvel versus Capcom Infinite had a storyline and stuff, and it took some bit of time, but after seeing everything, I kind of already knew it wasn't going to be much. So it's like, okay, well, I mean, I'm probably going to jump into multiplayer, Mortal Kombat, fantastic storyline. Like has 7 hours might be long, but it's a good amount of time to do
Yeah.
everything and watch everything. But it's all again, it's one of those games where it's like, well, if you just buy it for the story, maybe not $70 worth, but it's a multiplayer game. Like the whole point is to go online and get whooped or be whooped. I don't know. It's just that's kind of like how I see it. So I felt like it's really hard to kind of like judge a multiplayer game, and I think that's probably why some studios
That's-
kind of tend to go that route outside of the more monetized options that you can do with it.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's like, oh well, we just need to pad content out, help people come back to play, not, oh, is this game this long? Like, oh, it needs to be longer, so we got to do something, add some side quests, add some crafting, add some whatever. Like you got to do all the other stuff. Um, and I think for multiplayer, I mean, for single player games, I feel like, yeah, like we kind of need to know this number because I just feel like some games, like I said, like there are a lot of different games that kind of go about it with different standard. An RPG is more said to be a longer get type of game, while an action adventure or like a Mario platformer probably shouldn't be 50 hours to play for those kind of games. But these games still all charge the same price. And it's just kind of like now that we're getting older and stuff, it just seems like it's very hard to try and say, like, oh, I'm going to play this game. This 50 hours. I know it's 50 hours. Like, that might be a little inaccessible at the moment. Like, that alone would probably see, like, I probably have to bench it because it's like, I'm not sure. Because 50 hours might be way longer for me depending on how I play and whatever. Like for Dark Souls, I don't even consider it anymore. It's like, oh, I might be playing it way too long and stuff like that.
Well, that's one of the things that CD Projekt Red said about making Cyberpunk. Like, The Witcher's huge, but when they went back and looked at it, a lot of people didn't finish the main story, and that's why they had Cyberpunk not be as large story wise as The Witcher, because according to them, a lot of people didn't finish it. So I can understand that. But I mean, for those of us like, hey, I'm buying this one game because hey, that's what I got, and I'm gonna ride this thing out for as long as I can, and if it keeps me entertained, then there you go. But yeah, it's also on the publisher. Like they can make it really long out, but when they came out and said that, I was actually surprised because people looking for all the achievements, people trying to get squeeze as much out of it as they can, but they didn't even finish the main story. I was like, wow, okay, so that set it up for Cyberpunk. Could have seen more story for that. People finish the main
And
story.
that's where like my opinion like differs and stuff like that, because if I'm gonna have a game that's like 50 to 60 hours, but a lot of those hours is spent on like rinse and repeat quests, or just go from point A to point B for this or this to that and stuff like that. It's like that's, for me, that's gonna bore me of wanting to play the game, and so I'm just gonna jump ship, find something else, and at that point, that's where my money becomes wasted to me, because it's like, yeah, that game could have been a really good game for 50 to 60 hours, but if 30 of those hours was just doing all of that, then I look at the game and just get, okay, like, why am I going to spend money on stuff I'm not going to do? I'd rather spend it on something that I know for sure I'm going to do. I'm going to for sure have a good time. And at that point, for sure, be satisfied with what I came out with at the end of it. Kind of looks at it more of like a quality over quantity thing. And that's where, again, it becomes that gray area, because you kind of want the game to have a good amount of quantity, but also the quality being good as well. And that's where it gets really, really confusing on how to explain that and be okay with that. Like, I would be okay paying $70 for a good 7 to 10 hour Call of Duty campaign and not even touch the multiplayer. because I had a good time with it. I spent my time with it. The story was great. The mechanics of it, of course, are always great as it is, and you see what the difference they did and stuff like that. Like, all right, I had a great time with that. $70 for it, yeah, for me, that's a personally good money spent and stuff like that. But I do see how for the majority it would be like that's not enough time, or you know what I mean, for me to actually look at it and be like, okay, that's good to go.
So yeah, I think we all a little bit of different mind about it. I guess that's the best way to kind of say it. And I thought about it more because I'm not sure if you saw like this week about the whole King Kong game. I've been like kind of like going all over the place, like Rise of Kong or whatever, Skull Island. I don't even know the whole name.
Yeah.
And the game's like $40 right now for it, and it's for what people said it's a 3-hour game for the kind of the game it is, and it looks terrible. Like that's the best way to say it. Like a lot of people say this PS2 graphics, AI doesn't really do anything, invisible wall syndrome. There's a lot with it, but these people charge $40 for it. Like it was like, hey, like put it on Steam, see how much we can get for it. And I just kind of felt like, oh, is that what it looks like when you try to strip a game of like everything and say, well, we're just gonna say like, okay, this is the experience. It's 3 hours. Like we're just gonna have you run around, beat King Kong, smack things around, and then like, yay. Now you got your field. Now go away. It's like it felt weird because it was like, oh, like I play games that are like 5 hours that I've loved. Beacon Pines, I think, was a good 5-6 hours. Not even like a high impact gameplay thing, but it was really good. But I think the base game for that's like $20. So I was like, okay, well, I got a lot for $20 for that 5-hour, 6-hour experience. And this publisher's over here like, oh, hey, you can get that same experience, but with less time and more money. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. It's just like someone actually was in the room and it's like, this is how we have to release this. This is the key. And no one just said, I mean, time aside, like, are we sure? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense for us.
Well, what's
And
that
someone
Lord of?
said,
I was just gonna say, what's that Lord of the Rings game that came out with Smeagol or whatever that
Gollum.
Gollum? There we go. Like that was a full price game, wasn't it? And it
yeah,
got
it was
Yeah.
absolutely
50,
horrible
60 bucks.
reviews. Like all the reviews I saw for that thing were just terrible. But it's a Lord of the Rings game, so that's what it sounds like. It happened with King Kong. It's a King Kong game. It ain't great, but it's a King Kong game. So
Yeah, and that's definitely where I look at myself and go, I'm not going to pay that much money for a game like that because it has so many issues. So it it looks to me to mind that at that point the company is trying to steal my money because they're trying to save as much asset as they can on the mistakes and productivity and honestly how the production side of it went for that game. Like they went, all right, we had this idea for this game, and because of it, A, B, and C, which there could be publishing issues, licensing issues, release time issues where they won't budge and stuff like that, and the developers are looking at it and going, hey, like we probably need more time for this game and stuff like that. And they go, nope, we got to send it out and it's got to go. And it goes, okay, like at that point, like, I'm sorry for the developer because that really sucked because you put out a game that's not good. And I'm pretty sure I can speak for all three of us. Like we always want to have a good repertoire of something we put out on there. If it's something we work on, if it's something we do, we want to make sure it's good. You know what I mean? And if it's not
yeah,
good, we do our best to try and hold it back or try and fix it before we release anything like that. Whether it's work, you know what I mean, life, stuff like that. And so I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure a lot of these developers are trying to do that same thing. And that's where I look at bigger companies going, all right, we need it out because we want our money. And it's like they're pretty much cutting their losses and trying to do their best to just recuperate any money they can. It's like, all right, now these people are going to have a harder time possibly finding jobs in another dev cycle because they'll be like, oh, okay, I see on your list you worked on the Golem game. All right, like how, you know
yeah.
what I mean, like how was that, and like what did you do in that? And then they go and look at the research of what they worked on in
What
it, and it just gives
happened?
them, yeah. And at that point, the people have to go in defense mode, be like, hey, this is what happened, blah blah blah, and it becomes a sticky situation. And so the way I look to try and help out best of that is just I'm not going to support that game or support the King Kong game because you're not putting out a good product, so why am I going to put my money on it? It goes to like my whole decision when it came to Cyberpunk coming out. Like I was knee deep wanting to get it as soon as it came out and stuff like that. And once people were finally able to start to talk about it and what was coming out, that's what made me decide to buy it on PC. Because like, cool, it runs good on PC. It has, you know what I mean, it has a lot, like, not as much issues at launch on PC and stuff like that, and you run into a lot less problems. And from reviewers and other people talking about it, so they're like, hey, like verbatim, I played it on PC and it ran good, while others would say I played it on a Series X and stuff like that, and it wasn't as good because they didn't have the optimization ready for it at that time. So it's like, if I'm gonna make my decision for that money for that game I really want to play, I'm gonna buy it on the PC version. That way I can make sure I get a good experience and my money was well spent. And I'm still supporting the developer, stuff like that, but I'm at least supporting them on the part of it that they did a good job on.
But you have two extremes. Like that's the catch, right?
Mhm.
You have two extremes. You
Yeah.
have the Duke Nukem situation, and then you have the Cyberpunk situation, where they said we just need more time, just a little more time to polish this thing out so it doesn't ruin everything. Don't put it on the PS4. And the Duke Nukem is, yeah, we're gonna keep doing it. There's 3, 4 different engines we've gone through. This thing's gonna be, but everything's already outdated because you've been trying to keep polishing the same thing for so long, for so many years. So it's one extreme or the other. Like I agree with you on the developer side. You want the best thing to go out, but I don't think you're gonna have that. Like I said, you're gonna get that trigger pulled one way or another. Either the executives are gonna say, "Hey, too late, send it," or that Duke Nukem, we'll just keep throwing money at it until I feel it's perfect, and then never ships. And then by the time it does, it's it's not what people expected or wanted anymore. Like generations have passed.
I do wish I can have a conversation with some of them, because I was looking at the Lord of the Ring game, and it's one of the games that is both the publisher and developer of the same person. So it's like they funded their own game. They had another publisher, looks like, to kind of work with it. But like when I look at all the other games that they published, it's like a vastly different game and like something that they would probably fund. But like for it to be both the developer and the publisher be the same person, it just seems like it's hard to say like, hey, like the big boss was like, no man, we gotta ship it. And then like someone said, bro, no.
Please.
It's like look, like this is alpha at best, and it's like, I mean, it looks good to me. Like the person running it has to just not know games. Then it was just all like they saw like the intro thing, and it was like, it's Lord of the Rings, it would sell. And it's like, but it's games, man. Like just,
Or you're looking
nope,
at the
nope.
numbers. We're bleeding out this
Yeah.
much. We're not sure if we're gonna get a profit from it anyways, and we keep on pushing it. Let's just send it out the way it is. Like it took them 127 million with Phantom Literary to make all that stuff up. You had good favor going into it, but now that money you're paying out is to fix the game, yeah, but it's really to save your reputation.
Mm-hmm. And for some of the game like Cyberpunk, it was just that, oh, we do have a good product, it's just we couldn't really scale it down. And it just sounded an idea that they should just cut their losses. Like, hey, you know what, we tried, really wanted to, but it's not looking good. Because
Yeah.
like we talked about before, like for me, like PS5, it was great. Like I don't really think I ran into like a bug that stopped me from playing the game.
It crashed a
Like
couple
or
times for
anything
me,
like that. Yeah,
but
and
it was
so
fun
like I said,
enough. I
that's
played
like
through.
different experience. That was like different experiences just from me and you alone.
Yeah.
So like for everybody who had a PS4 that just had the same experience, and just like there's no way y'all didn't have PS4s, even if you had dev kits that had like like GigaChad RAM and stuff like that. I just don't see it like
It
it's just a little bit difficult to say like that wasn't like a foreseeable thing, especially if it happened on Xbox One, which would probably arguably a little bit stronger console. If that one was still having like a problems, it's like, okay, yeah, no, this whole line has to be cut.
I
It's not doing it, G.
and I tried it on that PS4. Man, I was about to break my own limited edition Batman console. Like was, I was pissed. I couldn't play through. It was terrible. But it wasn't meant to be on that PS4. That's what it really comes down to. That's why they didn't push Phantom Liberty
Yeah.
to it. And looking back at the price, that's why buy collectors. One of our boys got the collector's edition for Cyberpunk. What was it 250, right? The statue. and everything
Yeah.
else. He got it for the
How much?
PS4. How, you got to look it
How
up. I
much
know it was
did
a
it
few
cost?
hundred.
Yeah, cause I bought it and I don't even remember how
Yeah,
much it
like,
cost.
and he got it. He switched it all up. He got the PS4 version, and this is money. Our boy works hard, so I mean, it's one of those things like he got it for PS4, and you can't even play it. Like I was getting crashes every couple hours, but multiple crashes in the same hour, and you got the collector's edition of this. So that's the money you just spent for all this. So that's why there's a level of expectation. If it's an indie game, I see more as an indie game that's 20, $30. I'll put money on it because you got to have some passion to do that indie stuff. Like you're having fun. There's a level of passion to this, and you can see it in some of these indie games. A lot of these indie games, you can see it. They're not trying to just money grab. There's a level of passion there. So I'll support that. $30, the game lasts me a few hours. 7, 10 hours, sure. 15, I'm pushing it, great. I'll take the $30. I'll give it to you there. But for $70, I'm looking at a AAA title. I'm looking to get a lot out of it. And I'll give you that, the multiplayer thing. Yeah, if it's multiplayer, yeah, we're going to have to keep it different than that. Because you are expecting a lot of. I'm not multiplaying this month and then getting rid of it. So it is two different topics, but it's still $70, and it's not like the price of games are going down. So yeah,
And that's what I'm asking too. It's just like I mean, they used to be $60. We used to be having a different We had a different conversation when Cyberpunk came out. It was a $60 game, and looking at it, it was $200 for the PS4 Collector's Edition.
yeah.
So, man, that was actually one of my more favorite collector's editions.
Yeah, it was
But
cool.
It's a really
Statue.
nice statue.
yeah, like the statue.
The
was
whole
really
thing
nice.
is really nice too.
I just couldn't get it on PC. I couldn't find the collector's
But-
edition on PC.
Yeah, that was one of those. It was one of those games where I was like, I really should get it on PC, but it was like, no, then I won't actually play it at all. But it's just we're getting to the point where I feel like publishers are padding games too much, and other people are just not delivering like core experiences. Like I think that's kind of happening more often with a lot of these games. I'll use Assassin's Creed as an example because it was a shorter game, but there were some side quests that was like, do I need to do this? I look at the rewards and stuff, right? And in the game, you have now tokens you can give to people to help you out with certain missions. And I was like, but why? Wouldn't it just be better just to pay them? Here, $50. Go act like a drunken loser over there real quick. All right. And that's how the game used to be. Like, oh, hey, I need you to go walk in here. Here's $50. But here it's like you have to get these coins that you have to go find, or you complete them in the side quest. And it was like, not right. No, I don't like that. Like the skill points was one thing. Like those are the ones I did because it was like, oh no, skill points means I get to use more weapons. To me, that makes sense. Like I want to use more weapons, but if I want 10% discount from the merchant or whatever, it's like, okay, like I get 2 of those, so it makes 20%. That seems weird. And then that coin could be used for other things. Like, oh, that just seems weird for that to be like a quest reward rather than just be like, hey, I just want to use stuff. I don't want to be like, oh, I can't complete the mission this way because you didn't go do that side quest. You don't get that coin. It's all like, you had a coin. He needed 4 coins. You only had 3, man. I'm sorry. You weren't prepared. And it's like, no, that's dumb because even like how they had it set up, it was like, oh, you got to go to the bulletin board and then you got to go set them all, and then you'll just have them. But it's like, at that point, I just really liked it better as the map just being overly bloated because at least then I didn't have to like teleport back to one location just to accept the request and then teleport back to actually do the request. I was like, that was just kind of weird for me, but that's time. And I know they're looking at it like, oh, well, he spent 30 minutes doing this. This must be a good thing. You know, we gotta do more stuff like this in the future. And it's like, please don't. Please don't. Because if I have to do this for main mission stuff, then I'm like, okay, then it's not a 20-hour game. It is a 12-hour game. It's just 8 hours of what should have been fast travel is now it's just like, oh no, it might as well just be loading screens at this point. I might as well just set half the game with loading screens because that's pretty much how I felt trying to run through Baghdad. It's like, oh, well, let me go here. All right, let me go over here. I was like, that's dumb. Like it just kind of takes you out because it's like it's just you're being an accountant in the game, and for the reward to not really match, it's also kind of weird. And I'm seeing that a lot. I'm seeing like, oh, we have to have some reason for you to do a side quest outside of just the side quest being awesome.
Or a
Because you
good
brought up The
story.
Witcher, and The Witcher, the reason why people were doing the side quests because side quests were amazing. Like people love the side quests. Like they put in effort into them. So he was like, "Nah, this story is a lot better than the main quest. I want to see what happens to her. I want to see what happens to him. Yo, like this seems like a whole new game over here. I want to go do that." And obviously, that's more of a good. That's more what we should want. But I'm still seeing a lot of the other stuff of, hey, we're doing a side quest because we need you to play more of the game. Like, hey, we need you to do more assassinations, so we'll just make more assassinations. Like, cool. Might
It
as well just have that part of the story. 'Cause
It's
that's what the game's about. I was like,
it's was the main game worth what you paid for it? If you were to take out all the side quests and everything else, was the main game, the main playthrough, worth what you paid for Assassin's Creed?
I mean, like for his price, I think it was worth it. Mainly because of everything around Assassin's Creed. So there's also some more personal bias, but just to play like the more like assassinations, going back to formula, like the game delivered what everybody I think wanted. Sure, there's some stuff that could have been better. Like you could definitely tell, oh yeah, they haven't done this in a while, and it shows. But it's one of those things where it's like even like, but this is still good because this game is just like a minimum value product. Like if you were like, okay, the graphics are up there, everything's up there, we could do Assassin's Creed game, but let's not like make this stupid big map. Let's not do all this other stuff. How can the core of the game work? And that's what I liked about it. Like the core of the game works. You can assassinate different people. You could assassinate people in different ways. There's ways that you can kind of listen to stuff. They brought back a lot of other older mechanics, and they work. It's just now we're all listening at like that stuff on top. Like, okay, did the game need to be as long if this is all you're gonna do with that? Like, that was
right.
I think my biggest issue with it. It was like, yeah, it's not 60 hours like Valhalla, but Valhalla had that problem of it really shouldn't have been 60 hours. But they wanted you to be like, okay, we're going to separate every area by its own chapters, and you're going to have to go back to your HUD. You're going to have a conversation, and then you're going to do like 30 side quests in that one area, plus the main quest that you need to do to get to it, and then we'll unlock it. And it was just like, okay, this seems kind of monotonous because like you don't care about these people that you're helping with the side quests. It's just kind of like, oh, hey, my dog ran away. Can you go get him? Sure. Like it's just that type of side quest. Like the person that you're helping doesn't tie back into the game. Where at least with Assassin's Creed Mirage, some of these side quests that you did led to another side quest. So they had at least some kind of tie. Like, oh, like hey, if you ran into this important person, you might get more stuff. But after a while, you're just kind of like, well, I mean, now I'm just kind of in the motion. I really don't want to stop the play. Once I got all my weapons and stuff, do I really need to do the side quest? I don't really need. If I'm not like trying to get the mercenaries to go attack people, do I need that coin? No, and it's not like I'm getting a cutscene out of it. So it's just more those. It's more like a challenge list. Like do this without getting caught, and you just hear that get it to perfection, and that's pretty much the only reward you get out of it was just that one line. So it's like, okay, did this need to be here? Like, did I need to do this to visit this one area on the map that I probably would have ran into anyway just by playing the game? And so that's where it's a little bit more complicated. But I feel like the game, if those other things weren't there, I still feel like the game would have been $50. So I was like, was there any need for the padding?
Right. It also goes into discussion of Nintendo's first game that they released for $70 was Tears of the Kingdom. And it became one of those things where a lot of people were talking about like, well, why should I pay $70 for this game when all of the other Nintendo's games have been 60 and their console can't even do anything up to what the PS5 and the Xbox Series X can do or modern JPCs. So why should I be paying that much for the game? And then I look at the game and I go, oh yeah, I'm dropping $70 on this right away because I'm gonna enjoy the hell out of this. I'm gonna have so much fun with it. I'm gonna be playing it for about a year till I finally finish it, because that's what I did with the first one. Because it's what's for me, the Switch version is perfect because you just pick it up, play it, then put it down, and then come back to it, play it, and then maybe drop out for a couple weeks, then pick it up again and be like, all right, keep doing this, go to do that, and just slowly move along. But I'm gonna get completely my personal money's worth out of it, because the quality of the game is great. The story is a good, good story going for it, especially for a Legend of Zelda story, which is usually the the most thing on it. And then it like they even, I think with the new Mario Wonder game that's coming out, they're charging $70 for it, and people are like, well, why should I pay 70? I'm like, well, I would pay $70 for it because if it's a good Mario game and it's a good playing game, like I'm gonna get my time's worth and money's worth out of it, because it's just takes my time to have a good time, play, and enjoy myself. So why not spend it on a $70 game like that instead of spending it on a $70 game like maybe like Forspoken, where it's gonna have its issues and problems and it's gonna turn me off. You know what I mean? Like that's when I look at these things, and Nintendo's one of those ones where they're kind of in that weird spot because their system are a lot older than the PlayStations and Xboxes, and they're still starting to charge the same $70 price point for them. And so I definitely see the people giving a side like,
Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat.
$70? Yeah, that's another one where they probably shouldn't have released that on the Switch. That could have been one they could have waited, optimized it to where it actually worked good enough, and then go, okay, now we're going to release it. And I guarantee you, most fans and people would have been okay with it, because you're going to get most of your playthrough on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. And the people who are going to play it on the Switch are going to be the people who are willing to go to that portable route, but they want to make sure it works. So, like, buying the Mortal Kombat on the Switch is like a money cash grab just for them to try and get whatever they can at that moment, instead of holding it off, seeing if they could optimize it to run at least decent for most of the parts and then release it. You know what I mean? And that's where that like price point comes really, really important, since because games are getting way more expensive to make and they're getting harder to make. Like you're relying on Unity and Unreal and your own personal engines for these team developer teams to create these games, and that alone costs a lot of money because you got to learn how to use Unity, you got to learn how to use Unreal, and even Unreal 5 is still very fresh and new, so a lot of people are trying to play catch up because Unreal 4 isn't going to be any better for them anymore, so they got to jump to the new ship and learn that, and take that learning curve along with everything moving forward. So like when I see the Nintendo game being charged at $70, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna pay for it because that gameplay is gonna be absolutely killer for me. It ain't gonna be the most pretty thing, but Nintendo's usually pretty good about finding a good art style to at least make it look good, and then the gameplay itself would just be killer, and I will get my 7 to 20 to 150 to 200 hours worth, depending on which game it is.
I
And
go for it, D.
go ahead.
Oh.
No, 'cause I might derail the conversation. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's why it brings me back to the whole genre, and the bigger gap I'm saying between what we're saying is between indie and AAA titles from major studios or major publishers. I can be pleasantly surprised from an indie game that gives me a good 12, 15 hours at a price point that's lower than $40. Like, wow, man, that game that Team Ninja just made, they're making a sequel for it.
Oh, I know.
I just
I should know it.
all
Yeah,
of us
yeah.
should know it. It starts with an H. What's the name of it? Hellblade.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That is a gorgeous game. It is a very pretty game. I think it was $40, but that was unexpected. That's just it came out, and I wasn't expecting that to hit, and it was a fun game to play. And then, like I was saying, some of the other indie games I played, Oxygen not included. Like they're not expensive. I think less than $40. I'll just say I'll keep everything under $40 because obviously I don't remember all the prices. Under these $40, I expect, okay, I'm gonna have fun with this game. I don't expect it for it to last forever, but I'm gonna have fun with this game. And I've been pleasantly surprised for like games like Oxygen not included, where okay, well let's build on top of that. You set up a new base, set everything up, make it work. Cult of the Lamb. same thing, pleasantly surprised. Yeah, I beat it, but I want to go try and see what other stuff I can get within, how I'm going to be different than the last time I played through on Call to the Lamb. Like, I don't mind going into that price point. It doesn't have to be, you know, over exaggerated or nuts or anything like that. It's just for that price, I like being pleasantly surprised. Now, when you talk about things like we were saying, King Kong and what do you call it? What do you call it?
Golem.
Yeah, Gollum. I keep on switching out with Harry Potter. Um, I expect more because you're taking something that's very well known. Well, like I'm carrying this on my back. I want to do right by you guys, and then to have that come out, it's all right. Who do you pin that on? Like, do you need more time? Do you need more resources? Were you just looking for the cash grab? Who do you pin that on? Like, I'd rather be pleasantly surprised by an indie game that's less than $40 than seeing a AAA title and saying, all right, I'm spending 70 for this, but it's gonna last me a long time. That indie game might last me 15 hours, or if it's something I can New Game Plus or something like that, cool, that's great. Take my money. But if it's something like a AAA title, it better be an amazing story. To me, I better have a really good story, something I can hold on and remember to if it's something linear, or I'd be able to go back, make different decisions, be somebody else, and play it through over and over again so I can get all that money's worth out of that game. I just want a good experience. Overall, I want a good experience for the money I'm throwing down on it, where I have different level of expectations between indie and AAA students that we have all these guys working on it. But here's the mush. Like, no, like
Mm-hmm.
that's not what I'm expecting.
It, another way you could look at it, and this might be more of a personal thing that I would do, but when Hades came out, if they would have charged $70 for that game, would you have paid $70 for it?
And so you were gonna ask the question I was gonna ask. But I think that's the question I want to ask now. Is all like, well, of all the indie games that we named, would we pay $70 for them? Because I think indie gets a very nice like bypass on a lot of stuff. Like we're not gonna put them to the same level of a AAA because it's not fair. But it always sounds like, oh well, they're the better games. Like they're the games that take the risk. They're the games that do all this other stuff. When we also know that the entire game's a risk because this is a single person or
Yeah,
4-person team or whatever might be the
I'll give you
case.
that. Yeah.
This whole game's a risk. So to them, it's all
Right.
like they're already in it. Like we just have to try and make the best game as possible that we think is going to be the best. But we also have to play the other games of marketing and all that. But unfortunately, it's like everything about this is a risk, and it's a little bit different from a AAA studio that risk is a little bit more balanced. But it's one of those things where it's like, can we say that we have enjoyed, an indie game to say like if that game came out to be $70, like will we still buy it? Like I don't think I could buy or play Beacon Pines for $70. Like if for 5 hours, 6 hours, I loved it, but $70 would have hurt. Like that would have been obviously a gatekeeper for me. Like even with like if someone else said like, "Yo, man, it's gonna change your life," it's all like, but it's only gonna change it for 5 hours, and I'm gonna go back to normal being sad and realize I paid $70. So
Yeah,
I guess that's the question.
and I think we talked about it before. Like, how much faith do you have in the studio? Like, I cheer Supergiant a lot. Like, I love their games. I love the story of how they came up with everything, as far as formed and everything else. So I'm willing to. Hey, you got a game coming out? Here's my money. But when you put it that way, it did hit me. That's why I stayed so quiet. I was like, if Bastion was $70 though, would I get it? I'd have to wait for a sale. And that it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. The games are amazing. I love that studio. The games that they put out are unique. They're not, except for like Hades 2 coming out as the first sequel they're doing, but it's built up confidence. Like BioWare. If BioWare is, it reached Dragon Age and it had, Mass Effect. When Mass Effect 2 was coming out, I didn't care. They said 60, $70, and here's my money. Because that's what I'm expecting. Like, you guys build up a reputation where I know I can go in and here's the cash because I already know what you guys are going to give me. But the idea is if they came out and I'm playing it or got a demo for it and say this is $70, I'd be a hard pressed. As much as I love those studios and I have confidence in their work, it's $70. Like that's a hard press. Um, if they come out to
Yeah, like
add goodies, then yeah,
for me, like for Hades wise, I would have paid $70 for it because it would give me that same experience that I would have with a Nintendo game. It doesn't have that Nintendo license behind it and stuff like that, but the art style is fantastic. The voice acting is fantastic, and then the gameplay itself is just fantastic, along with the story. Like the story is not the best thing in the world, but it's a good story. So you're hitting mark after mark after mark of something fantastic, and they go, you know what? We put a lot of work into it, and we did a lot of time, so we're gonna charge this much for it. It may be a little egregious to some people, but we feel it's right. And then the product for itself kind of spoke for itself at the price. I mean, like when the game was coming out, everyone was kind of telling like this is like a steal to play this amazing game, this game of the year, pretty much a contender for $40 and stuff like that. When it could have easily paid $60 to $70 for this game, and people would have been just as happy with it because the product was just so good. And that's where like I look at it and go, absolutely, like that's something I'm gonna enjoy, spend my time on. And you know what I mean, they're hitting all the marks that I personally need to make the choice to put my money right there into it. So why not?
I got in, but that's where Supergiant gets me. I got on the early beta for Hades, and I really liked it. And I already knew about Bastion. So where they get me on the comeback is I have it for PC. I have it for the PlayStation 4. I transferred it to my PlayStation 5. They're getting a repeat customer from me because I'm buying that same game in every platform I can play it on. As crazy as that sounds, because it's the same thing that happened with Cult of the Lamb. I I believe I originally got it for Steam, and then I wanted the kids to play it. I was like, "Oh, you're gonna have fun doing this. Uh, you'll have fun." So I got it for PS4, PS4, PS5. But you're gonna have me. Am I gonna do that $70 in each platform? No, no, you're not gonna get me that way. But am I gonna buy the game over again for different platforms for $30? If I like, as crazy as it sounds, if I like the studio and I like the game, yeah, you got me. The money you're gonna get from me is it comes down to the pre-order part of it. If I trust you and I like the studio, I'll give you a shot till you burn me. That's why the whole CD Projekt Red thing is you had the rep. People are gonna come to you. You say it's $70, we believe you. It's $70 because you guys have the rep.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're working on what, Cyberpunk 2? You build up that rep, but now that pre-order thing is, I'm gonna be cautious because if I already got burned for $200, I'm more worried about what you're gonna push out next time. Do you still have that goodwill that you had before you try to rush me to my wallet? So
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of what it comes down to is like it's really difficult to kind of make a lot of like this play just because it's like, oh well, it's I want to be able to like to put in that kind of money, but yeah, like for like a not known, like for me, Cult of the Lamb, if you told me that was $70 and it was like, well, who's it from? And I was like, well, I don't know who those people are. It's one of those things where it's like, I mean, like even if it was like Nintendo published game, like even then it would probably be pretty hard. And I was thinking about it because like Nintendo kind of gets away with this because a lot of their games too don't really have a lot of side content. Like when you were talking about Mario Wonder right now, I just saw like a review on it yesterday, and the guy just seemed like he was ecstatic. I was surprised he didn't give it a 10, but he ended it with a 9 out of 10. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, okay, well, I can see where people like this because like everything that he really liked about it was the gameplay itself. It was in there's no thing that you can just go fly off. They just make whatever you're doing just sound insane. But it's like, okay, yeah, like I don't see them padding a game like that. So, but Nintendo kind of does this across the board. Like even when I think of like bigger games like Breath of the Wild and all that, people tend to like the delivery of how they pad that game. And so I was like, oh, cool. Like, that's kind of what it is. So I could see a game like that being the cost. But like for something like Cult of the Lamb, it's like I'd probably get some enjoyment out of it. But $70 is still $70.
yeah,
So, but it's like, does it clear the 20-hour number for me? Like if I got 20 hours out of his main story and it's $70, well, at that point, I have to at least say by principle, like it should be, like as long as it's like the gameplay, as long as the story, and that's where it's like we need this number after a while, because it just seems like there's a lot of people who are thinking that you do need to make, even if you have a really good game, that you have to pad it with something else to make it a AAA game. And I don't think that's true. Like y'all both said, if there's a game that has the the how would I say, like, just
The
being a good
lineage,
product.
yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Like that, just have a good product, lineage. Like if it has all that kind of stuff, and the company said like, hey, this time we're gonna kind of pull that trigger on it. Sure, like I could kind of say that's a good idea and stuff. And if another game comes out like, hey, this game has all this stuff, sure. I think it's easier to be like, okay, is at least around this number to where we can kind of say, yeah, I think I'm good with it. Then I that maybe be an easier way to go about it, or at least something to tell like other developers, like, hey, if you already clear 30 hours, maybe you need to start thinking about how too much stuff that you did. Maybe you might have added more than what you needed to, and maybe you just need to have a fresh pair of eyes play it, being like, oh, do I also need to craft side quests, build a tower, have a dating sim, have mini game, have the single player actual route, and then also have a love interest route all in one game, just because I need to make this seem like it's jam packed with stuff to do. And then still not deliver on voice acting, not deliver on just showing content.
And that's the catch. You can have all that extra stuff, sure. Just make the core of the game good. You want to pad it with a bunch of other stuff. Don't make it so it's a necessary mechanic or a freaking gate lock like you're saying for Assassin's Creed. Like, you need these coins if you want this certain thing. Like, is the core of the game good? Then I'll throw in a dating sim. I can date another assassin? Sure, why not? Do I have to? No! I don't care! But if you want to throw everything in it and the kitchen sink, but you still make the game good, like the core of what you're looking for as a gamer good, then yeah. But don't try to justify making it like $200 because, oh, by the way, now you can date other assassins. Meet your future assassin. Like, no. I'm here to play Assassin's Creed, not dating sim Assassin's Creed. Like, but
yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like just that mechanic alone. If that mechanic was added to Mirage, and it's like, oh no, you can't pass it until you romance somebody. And it's like, yo, like, really? Like that's just like, just gotta having to think about that. It's like, I don't even know where they would have added that in the game, but if they just straight up said like, no man, this is for people who aren't single assassins. Like, wait a minute, aren't we all for assassins? Like, we shouldn't be dating anybody. Isn't the whole point? Isn't this game called Assassin's Creed? Isn't there a creed
you lost karma points because you forgot your other assassin's anniversary date? Nah, that's it. That's it. Start over. First time you guys killed together.
So it's all like, nah, man, you didn't trade in your V card for your assassin card, man. That's how the game played. What do you think? We're just gonna cut your finger and that was gonna be it? No, man, we need people, some class too. Like it's like we need to know you have Riz. It's just like it's just that kind of. It would suck if like that was just something that was just kind of added and then be like, well, why? It's like this doesn't feel like it fits the game at all.
No.
And I think y'all probably played at least one game where you're just like, there's a lot of mechanics in this game. It just didn't seem like they needed to be here.
Like that made me think of Catherine. Catherine is basically a dating sim with puzzle solving.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's not extra. That is part of it.
But like, that's the main.
That's
game.
The main thing.
It's all like
that's what made me think of
a puzzle game, and you're trying to see how horrible of a human being you are. That's the whole point of that game. But what happens if they had you stop playing the game to play poker in the middle of it, and it was like, oh no, we got to play poker with the devil because he just wants to know if you're going to be his right hand man or his lackey. He just kind of wants to figure it out now before you get to the end of the game. It's like, wait a minute. Why? The main puzzle's already hard enough. It's like, that's the kind of the thing where it's all like, if it's part of the game, sure, but if it's something that's like a hard press, like you mentioned, it's like,
Yeah.
seems kind of weird, man. But then it's like they say, like, yeah, but it's like it's a plus, right? It's a feature, It's like, but it's just $70.
It
It's like, or could you just give me another main character assassin mission where like I actually care about the villain and stuff like that, or at least give me more backdrop on some of the people in the game. I'd rather do that, be like, hey, I got more information about the game world, just to say like, oh hey, then we in the business of hunting down and killing people, and we're gonna play shoots in the back of this alley. Just all right, that's kind of how we're gonna get these. I'm gonna get these coins today.
it's like like I said, I don't mind all the extra stuff that's included in it, as long as what you're giving me is what I was originally looking for. If you have extra stuff that doesn't hinder me from accomplishing the main things I'm doing, and you can just like Cyberpunk going around and helping with the NC police missions. There's so many on the map that you can keep on just doing and doing and doing. And I like doing it because there's usually some story or some random thing going on in the game that, oh, this is what happened. A deal went wrong. But it's not necessary to do all that stuff. You can look at the map and be like, I'm never going to finish all this stuff. Or back before they patched the game and you had all the cars. I'm never going to buy all this stuff because all these cars are extremely expensive. But it's just a matter of it's there not because you need to do it, but because if you want to do it, there it is. You can have fun and you can still do what you want to do.
And I guess the question I want to ask now, because we kind of gone over it a few times, are like, because it's something I also would like to get your opinion on. Is it okay for a publisher developer to break a promise when they know they can't deliver it? Because like we said about Cyberpunk, about
Overwatch.
PS4, PS4 and all that. We talked about probably like there's a lot of Mortal Kombat and their Switch port. Like, are we okay to say like, you know what? If you can't do it, there's nothing that can be done. I'd rather you not release it than feel like you still release it just to take my money and say, oh, it's easier to say sorry than ask for permission.
It's definitely like, especially for someone who's been working pretty much customer service for 15 years, like, just if you try to promise something and you know you can't do it, then you need to backtrack it and be upfront about it. Because once you're upfront with it, then your customers, your clientele who are going to be part of it, could be like, oh man, that sucks. Like, that sucks that you're not doing that. But at least you're letting me know about this before I actually put my money down on this video game. And therefore, if I still want to put my money down on this game, I know this part is not going to be okay. It's not going to be in it, but I know the rest of this stuff will be okay in it. So I can justify my purchase at that point to be like, okay, cool. At least you're upfront about it. I mean, that really sucks that it doesn't happen, but I'd rather you be upfront about it than try to just get away with it or sleazeball your way by it and just be like, here's the game. Wait, what happened to this part? You said we were going to be able to do this. How about this part? This part's great, isn't it? You like this part right here? Yeah, that's what you really wanted to do, and everything, and that's where you start losing your trust in your customers and your clientele, and that's where everything starts going downhill, because then you start going to the point where you're like, all right, well, you promised me X, Y, and Z, and you're only giving me X. Like, then next time you're doing another game, I'm gonna double check myself and probably maybe just wait till it goes on sale to buy that game, because you already messed up that part. So how can I trust myself to put all my money into buying this game as soon as it comes out?
But that's the controversy that happened with Overwatch, ain't it? That's the whole controversy going on with Overwatch, where they're supposed to have that PvE, but they just never had that PvE. But then they had that PvE, but it was behind a paywall that was supposed to be part of the base game, but it's not part of the base game. You're supposed to level and you have stuff added to it. So what do? Do you you already have the game? It's free to play anyways. You've already been buying everything, like microtransactions from skins to everything else. But what was promised as far as that element of leveling up and everything else hasn't exactly been delivered. And then when they put in those missions, they're like, yeah, the missions are there, but it's $15 to get the missions. Like, you're not being forced to get anything more. what exactly they said was going to happen didn't exactly happen. So you can't protest and not, be like, oh, okay, well, I quit. Okay, well, you already spent all the other money on skins. That's like, that's it. Well, that we didn't keep that part, but so what do you do? That's like if I got
Well,
kicked
I
out of
think,
League of Legends, there goes all my stuff,
yeah.
and what do you do?
But like it would suck if League of Legends saying, "Hey, we're finally stopping League of Legends and making League of Legends 2 because we want to have a story mode. So we're gonna have to migrate you all off on there, and now you're gonna play the new game." And then like everybody's on the new game and all that, and there were so many issues, and we had to go through a trial period. And then it's like, oh well, we figured out we couldn't do the story mode, so we're just gonna cut it. But we still justified that you had to pay for the second game because we felt like we put enough into it, to justify a brand new game, even though they've been improving that game for what, a good decade now. Like that would just seem kind of weird to be like, oh, we finally got you, we found a reason to get you all across the line, and then it's like, oh well, now we got our threshold of people. Hey, by the way, we just can't do it. I'm sorry. Well, well, we threw in some other content though. I mean, we could have did it already, but it is what it is. The rest of y'all, if y'all want to get this content now, it's on the second game. So if y'all haven't switched over yet, chop chop. Like that's kind of what that situation was like when it came to Overwatch. It was like, okay, but and this kind of gets into like, should we also be taking in games that are supposed to have the content, but the content wasn't out on release? So that kind of goes into that too. Like, hey, this is a 50-hour game to beat, but the 25 hours is missing with that content. Like, okay, well, is it 25? So I had to see it as a 25-hour game for $70. Is that okay? Is that not? That kind of gets into that. But that's just one of those things where it's like, okay, well, you not only did you not do the thing that you did, but you kind of did the salesman technique of kind of getting me into the door and saying, I promise I'm going to give it to you, and then not deliver it.
Well, that goes back to what we were talking earlier. I was going to say basically, you vote with your dollar. I'm voting for that studio, and I'm trusting that studio is going to give me what they believe is fair for what they did. So I'm going to vote yes on getting that game and supporting that studio. Overwatch, it's I've been playing Blizzard for a long time, so they used to have that thing where it's ready when it's ready. They were really known for that. Like, when you guys going to release this thing? It'll be done when it's done. Okay, and eventually it just turned into, it's a Blizzard game. You're not going to release something that's crappy, but you know it's your word. It's what you said you were going to do. It's what you're selling to people. So are you going to vote for another a Blizzard game when they say, oh, we're going to hand you everything you've been looking for, everything you want, even though last time we said that we didn't complete it, but this time for sure you're going to vote with your dollar. If you vote, go in and you get Overwatch 3 or whatever the future case may be, then you said, yeah, I know you guys did this, but this time I have faith. Well, now you're putting your money where your mouth is. That's why it was so important for CD Projekt Red to regain their reputation. You had faith. We had faith. But look what happened with the PS4. What are you going to do to make up for this? Because it's not like you're done. Like Grand Theft Auto, that game's been churning for years. But they haven't released Grand Theft Auto 6 yet. But I have faith that Grand Theft Auto 6 should be good. I trusted it'll be good because when it first announced, oh, well, you're going to separate between three different characters, even I was like, how are you going to pull that off? Like, how's that going to work? And it works out really well where you can immediately jump between three different characters. But they delivered. I don't, it's I don't see where Blizzard is making up for where they failed on Overwatch with how CD Projekt Red is trying to do it. I don't see it.
It's the sorry, it's the like communication aspect of it is where they failed in the beginning, and then going forward when they're trying to keep their customers and their clientele staying within the game and stuff like that, you have to find a way to communicate how you're going to move forward and keep your honesty out there, because you got to talk as the devs and as the publisher of the team. You got to be like, hey, okay, this is where we messed up. This is where we got to do this. We promised this. Here's what we can't do, and this is why we can't do it. So what we're going to start doing now is working on this, and that's going to upset people, of course, because they didn't give out what they want. But at least going forward, as a person who's going to be playing Overwatch, you know what the future goal is and what their aim is towards, and at that point, you can make the decision as the customer to go, okay, I'm going to ride with this. They're saying this, so they're going to do this, and then it's up to Blizzard to put their money where their mouth is and come out with what they said they're going to do. And I think that's where they've been flopping it is. They're not really being very vocal about it and stuff like that. CD Projekt Red was complete opposite way around. Came out, disaster, went, all right, guys, we messed up. We messed up. We know we messed up. We know the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One can't do this. And so what we're gonna do with the Phantom Liberty coming out is like we're gonna do the updates for the next gens and for PC, because we know it's just not worth it. And at that point they were like, we're gonna refund you your money back to be able to get the game back, stuff like that, or vice versa. If you bought the PS4 or Xbox version, you can upgrade for free to the optimized version, so that way you can still play the game. They put their money where their mouth is, ate it, got back that clientele to give them that trust, and then released Phantom Liberty, and everyone went, okay, cool. Like, this DLC is coming out for only the next gens. Originally, they said it wasn't. That it was going to come off the bottom ones, but they came out and said, hey, we can't do it. Like, it's just not going to be feasible. So then at that point, as a client, so that you go, okay, I get it. That makes sense to me. I understand that. It sucks, but I'd rather you be honest and tell me about that instead of being like, all right, guys, Phantom Liberty's out. And then PS4 and Xbox people going, well, I thought it was supposed to come out for my version. Yeah, so about that, you know what I mean? That's where they get back into that trouble. And I see that's where Blizzard has been fumbling their parts on that kind of communication era with their clientele.
But their catch on that is the free upgrade. You can get it once you upgrade your hardware to do it. I could have been on a Windows 98 computer, but eventually I'm gonna have to upgrade to be able to play anything. That's the same idea. At least they're telling you, as far as the game is concerned, we're not gonna get you a PS5, but when you do, it'll be waiting for you.
Right.
And for Blizzard, I've been playing the games for years. Like I really enjoyed the games, the cinematography, the story, and all that stuff that went with it. And that's not including all the controversy of the work environment and the culture and all the other stuff going on with it. Yeah, I'm just focused on right now, as of this discussion, the games of it. You want me back as far as having faith that the next one that comes out, I'm going to pre-order and get it. Then I need to know that what you're saying you're going to deliver is going to be delivered. Now I can trust maybe that for WoW. I can that wow, that's it. Overwatch, trust in that is not there. Like if you tell, oh well, Overwatch 3 is gonna have it, nah, man. I might still get a collector's edition for the next WoW expansion, but not for Overwatch, because I at this point you burn that. I want to see what's coming up and what's in it before I have my money set down on the table for you to take it.
And to show a way where Blizzard did a good job is with Diablo 4, because they put their foot on the ground and said, hey, you're going to be able to play it on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And sure enough, it came out, and they went, yeah, it plays well on there. And I know for sure because my girlfriend, that's like her favorite game, and she's still playing it on my Xbox Series S, the older one, at the house, and we play it together, and it runs fine. And there's times where I've been over to her house and we play together on that, and it runs fine. And that's where Blizzard and developers for Diablo went, all right, we we said it's going to come out for it, so we made the effort and we made it work. And so that clientele for Diablo was like, all right, cool, we appreciate that because you held up to your agreement and stuff like that. Even though Overwatch wasn't doing what they said to do, at least we know for Diablo 4 they were able to do it. And that's where like the communication came in with Diablo, because they said, hey, we're going to do this, so they did it, you know what I mean, instead of having it be bad and then just go, all right, well, whatever. they put their money where their mouth is, and it worked for them.
I mean, well, then kind of going back to the original question, then is like if they couldn't do it, like they just couldn't release it on that hardware, would it be fine? And that kind of like in hindsight's 2020. We can kind of look at the Cyberpunk 2020 situation. We can see what people are doing. We can see what Overwatch is doing right now. But now going forward, if Cyberpunk or CD Projekt Red, their next game doesn't come out into the next generation of Xbox and next generation of PlayStation, and it's like this absolutely can't run on the PS5, but of course they're going to say it's going to run on PS5 because that's current gen. Would it be okay for them to just straight up say like that the year of, like, you know what, we tried, but we just couldn't do it?
I'd rather
like,
have that.
We're just going to cut it now.
Like, I'd rather have that happen than to lowball me and give me the experience I was having on a PS4 that made me bitter. I only played that a little bit on a PS4 when it was crashing over and over again, and I was already dealing with that on the PS5. And not in the sense of like several times in the hour, every couple hours, but the game was fun. It kept me in there. I'll deal with the crash. I'll just save more. Like, that's not a problem. But if they were to come back and be like, we tried, we can't make it for the PS5, you're gonna have to get a PS6. Okay, that's not an issue for me. If I want to play that game, I got to get a PS6. That's the same thing. If I want to play certain games that are exclusive, I'm going to have to get that system that it's exclusive to. I don't have an Xbox. So if I want to play a certain game that's exclusive to Xbox, I'm going to have to get an Xbox. Whether it be 1, 2, 3, S, X, Y, it doesn't matter. If they come back and say, it's only available on this platform, are you willing to do the switch or get that hardware? If the game is good enough, and once again, studio, if it's good enough, I go, if you guys believe in it that much and you got the exclusivities to it, sure, I'll make the jump to it. Or I go, I can't do it right now, but I'll do it later. You still got my $1. And if you release it for the system at that time, you still got my $1. But don't play me.
Mhm.
Like, don't lowball me. So I will take that honesty up front. Straight up. You can't make it for the PS5? Sure. Architecture is different. Hardware's different. Too much time. Resources will be gone. You won't make back what you're losing. All right, cool. But don't be like, oh, it's for the PS5, and then 10 minutes into it, the loading screen crashes. Like, are you kidding me?
Now, would 20-year-old you say the same thing?
Yeah, because I think I'd just be pissed. I'd probably a lot more pissed 20-year-old me. Because I wasted my money on this thing. You knew it didn't work, or at least well enough. I wasn't, not like a Mortal Kombat situation on the Switch.
Yeah.
Like, okay, of course it's lower gen console. I'm not expecting 50 people just walking around randomly on screen. But if you had enough confidence to have your game come out in this, then I would hope that you would have enough faith to go, I mean, I would play this. But if you're like, wow, it did that? Who knew? You knew! You're telling me everybody that worked there didn't have a PS4 and nobody said anything? So I think 20-year-old me would still very much be like, you took me on this, and I don't appreciate that. Like, I had faith to buy this thing, even looking at what the actual gameplay looked like. Because you know that controversy at the beginning. Oh, look at the gameplay. Like, it looks like this. It's so beautiful. And then they show the actual gameplay, and you're like, where's the reflections? Where's the people? Is that person walking with a cane? Because they don't have a stride anymore, doing the T thing all the way across the screen. Are you kidding me? Like, that's the actual gameplay, and you're showing me CGI at the beginning of this? Like,
And I asked that not to move the goalpost, but also to kind of put it in perspective of like how many people do outrage on it. Like, because I think it's fair to say that there are people, not to say that there's people on both sides, but there are people who are like, no, like, you need to release it for my console because that's BS that you still don't support it. And then be like, but we can't. Like, no, it's not fair that you don't, it's like kind of get into that and be like, this is still current gen. People probably still don't have a PS5. It's not fair that you haven't released it. And then that becomes a controversy. I hear people say like, well, if the developers, they just let us know and stuff, I think we can kind of give a heart. And then we go on Twitter and it's like, yeah, that's like 1%. I guess this is one of those things where even in that case, I'm still on the fence, or not on the fence. I'm still in the camp of no, if they don't, they can't do it. You know, avoid trying to do the, let's get our integrity back and be like, let's admit a fault and stuff, and
Right.
save everybody the apology video. Just say like, hey, we're gonna say it up front, we can't do it. Sorry, but this the game. It's what we want to do, just physically can't work on this limited hardware.
And that's
And
that's the thing I'm saying about exclusivities. It's not like, oh, this is
Mhm.
just Sony bought us out, like we can't do it, because Activision and Microsoft just went through. So I'm wondering what the fallout of that's going to be. Like, it's not that we can't do it for the hardware. I mean, it's not that we don't want to do it for the hardware. It's just we can't. We can't give you that same level of quality. Like, that's. I know I said exclusivities, but it's just a matter of you just can't do it. If the game's exclusive to a certain
Mhm.
system and it's on that system, I can see a person feeling some way of like, okay, well, you guys can release it on this system. You know you're going to make the same amount of sales. You know you're still going to make money off of this, but you guys are locked to that system over there. I can see people being miffed about that. But in this situation, it won't run. I'm a developer. I don't create miracles. Like, it won't
Yeah,
run.
and that's what I meant, right? Because like the other
Yeah.
option is like, I can argue that people are like, well, they care and don't care whether or not exclusivity. They more care about like, well, can I play it on PC? If I can play it on PC, I don't care what you can do for anything else. But if it's like, oh no, only run for Xbox and PlayStation, then that's when people will have more of a problem. Like, oh well, it should run on PC. Why you gotta do me like that? And it's like, well, there's no real reason besides that.
If it
But I
should
feel
run
like
on
if it was
Xbox,
PlayStation, but when people have it like, well, it runs on PC and PlayStation, or if it's like PC and Xbox, people don't kind of have that same outrage. It's just like, oh well, it doesn't run for Switch, whatever. Oh, like, oh well, it doesn't run for Xbox, but it runs for PC. That's all I care. Like I feel like that's also always weird, because it's like, I know that's a big push right now. It's like, oh well, it should always work for PC. That should be the gold standard for all the games. Like, it doesn't matter what issue that you have. But like you said, going back to the other thing of like, no, like we want to put it on that console. We want to put it on that hardware. We can. I know you want to play this on the Steam Deck. We did not even think about the Steam Deck when we made this.
yeah,
Yep.
When I talked to people at CD Projekt Red this year about accessibility, like, hey, I noticed, you didn't have a lot of accessibilities in the game, and this was the same year that God of War and Horizon had fantastic accessibility options, and what they said was, we just didn't we couldn't think about it at the time. Like, making this game, there's a lot of stuff that we were doing new, a lot of things that had to be proofed out, a lot of things that had to be recreated, that we just, not everything could come from The Witcher to this. Like, it just wasn't the thing. And so unfortunately we just couldn't really put this. And then of course after the fact, it's just couldn't be on the to-do list, because at that point now we're putting out fires. Now we have a different focus than whether or not it's accessible or not.
yeah.
And it's just like,
This is going into production. That's we're not going
yeah.
back and adding features now and screwing up what we've done testing. This is production. If we have time, we'll go back and add
Yeah.
features.
It's like we're live.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
we can't take the whole thing down now.
Like, we're
And
CS people, we understand that, but maybe everybody else outside of that be like, can't you just add it? Nah, you're gonna break something.
It's not a button.
Yeah,
It's not a button.
it's
You
not
can
a
just press.
button.
yeah, but how many conversations do you have with people and they're all like, oh no, someone could have did it, or someone could have did this. Split screen for Halo, someone janked it out, and it's like, well, how come they couldn't do it? And it's like, well, I mean, there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
Like, obviously there's probably a way to get two things on the screen, but making sure it plays well for the entirety of you playing the game, that's a different
Yeah,
discussion.
you can make things happen.
And
You can force it, but you're in a
Mhm.
situation where anything you're relying on my code. I'm relying on his code, and if he messes up, then there can be chain events going up and down all our versions. Like,
And
I
then that
understand.
also leads to the original question of the $70. Like, if they just force these things to be in there, then that $70 price point is gonna hurt even more when you pay for it, because it's gonna have that jank now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so that's when you get that whole like, oh, why did I pay $70 for this? It's like, well, like these guys bit off more than they could chew and tried to do it. Instead, they should have realized that they bit off more than they could chew, came out and said, hey, we can't chew that much, so we're gonna have to do this. That way, you have a good quality product at the end.
But that's being straightforward with who your customers are.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're gonna get blowback, but all I have is a PS4. Well, that sucks. All I got is that sucks. We're sorry, but you're gonna be even more mad when you try to play this than you realizing that, hey, I gotta get an upgrade. I gotta upgrade. So it's better that you just upgrade and get mad that we don't have it for your platform, to play it on your platform and realize, wow, this isn't the gameplay. This isn't what I was promised. Yeah, we know, but that's what you asked for.
And,
so,
and maybe this is like a weird way to look at it, but I think like some developers need to see like, okay, we have a great game, but we're about to do this. Will it cost us Game of the Year? Like, will it be like, oh, it's a great game, but it was a buggy mess, and it's not like all of it was just this part, and it's like, should we still do it? And while I know like levels and stuff don't really mean much for like game development, right, especially like Game of the Year and all that, unless you're trying to get brownie points with your homies, Elden Ring, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's like, yeah, maybe you should think about it a little bit. Like they had a great product. I know a lot of people that love Cyberpunk. I loved everything about it. They loved the lore. They read the books. Like I said, I got the collector's edition. I think I even got the book, and I didn't even think I read the book. I was like, "It's a really nice book."
I went through the whole shtick, YouTube videos and everything.
Those things where it's all like, but it's one of those things where it's all like, yeah, but it can never be like the greatest of all time for what they did put into it, because everybody's just always gonna remember, what happened. Like, it's like, you had to be there.
But that's
the T-pose.
You can't change that. That's the come up, right? You can't change what happened. The developers were probably pissed, like, don't release this, and they're like, we have to because we're bleeding money or whatever the case may be. It's released. You can't change that anymore. You already got the bad blood. You got the bad rep. You were a hated company more than EA. You know how hard you have to work to get hated more than EA at times? Like, so what do you do to make it up? So you put in all these patches, you bring in the DLC, you put in all that work, and then you say, okay, for the next one, now that we burnt through all that money, several hundreds of millions of dollars, for the next one, we know we can't do that again. I hope we know that we can't do that again. Take the Blizzard approach. It'll be ready when it's ready. We're going to send you screenshots. We're going to release things. We're not going to tell you that this movie is the actual game. We're going to be upfront with you. But if you've enjoyed the game already, then when the second one comes out, you don't even have to think about it. You know you're going to like it. But that's a lot of work to make up for something that you could have just said off the bat. It ain't going to happen. Look, people, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, because doing things like that, like going into like the cost of making these games and stuff like that, and why they're being $70, like you're gonna spend that money to have it not work and then still release it. Instead, you could have realized it ain't gonna work and stop the cost and stop the bleeding right then and there, and then just take the PR hit in the beginning and then be able to make up with it with a finished quality product at the end. And that way you feel good that my $70 went to the right product at the end. Although they didn't promise this, and this, at least I knew that beforehand. And then I put my money into the game, and it fulfilled me for what it was.
And it's equivalent. I see this as equivalent as if the company just got a cyber attack, right? Like when you get compromised, a lot of money is going to get spent, not only for fixing your systems, if you're holding customers' data, the PR that you have from that, all the other jazz. Like when you get hacked, is you can always rebuild a system, but everything after that, it's the cost is so high that just like, oh god, what do we do? Like, how do we fix this and stuff? And I feel like when they do stuff like what Cyberpunk did, what um EA did with Battlefront 2, I believe, and kind of all that, it's like that is high cost, and is while you can't always see the dollar amount in the sky, it costs a lot, and it's like this is kind of what it feels like when you just push and say screw it, we're just gonna have to see how it works, instead of being like, no, we know this doesn't work, and the people who made it told you don't work. Like that's always kind of like a thing to me. It's like the people who told you made it don't work. So why are you still putting it out there?
This isn't
And
gonna
it's
work.
like,
Let's
okay,
do it.
whatever.
This isn't gonna work. Let's do it. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Blame the developers. Like,
So it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
and like you say, it had to be somebody had to say like, yo, the cost of this failing could be worse than the 10 years that we put into it.
you know what it reminded me of? Fight Club. It was like the cost of a recall. If it's less than the lawsuit, then you just don't do it.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely. It's a good way to put it.
was it worth the cost of the lawsuit?
And so I felt, I think that was a good topic. I want to ask because it's like we're getting to that point where I think it's now starting to become a little dangerous. Like now, AAA games feel like they always have to make an open world now. They always have to make a game that they have to have more monetized options, more padding, more a lot of this stuff. And we're now, I think for us who are older, maybe the younger kids have more time to complete these games and stuff. You know, I know at least I had the energy to do it when I was young. You know, but it's one of those things where it's all like, okay, from August to now was Armor Core to Starfield to MK1 to now we had Assassin's Creed, now Spider-Man 2 tomorrow. Like these games, none of them outside of like are minimum 20 hours. Mortal Kombat is like, yeah, sure, whatever, but it's a multiplayer game. So, and then like those are like the AAA games, you know, discounting any indie games that made it came out under the radar around those times. And it's like, okay, well, as much as I was able to kind of beat them, like the way that I can, there was some things where I had to say, yeah, I'm not doing that. One game I just couldn't be like, oh, you know what, I'm just not into it right now. It came at the wrong time. Like it just can't. And then I had to bite that cost because I already paid it, but it was one of those things where it's like, oh, there's a lot to do, and right now I just don't see me doing it while I see all this other stuff to do. And I just noticing that, like with the games coming out and stuff like that, who do have good ideas, who do have good concepts, kind of being in a place where they really probably foreseeably shouldn't have been. And so it's like, well, is there a standard that we can all agree on? Like, hey, if you can do this, look at what you did. If it worked for this, then yeah, sure, go back and do some other stuff. But if you can get this, if you can make me enjoy a game that's $70 for 20 hours, and I think my number is 15, you can get if I can get a good 15 out of it, and I'm like, damn, how's a good 15 hours? Then I think you kind of cleared the bar. At least there's your 7 out of 10 on IGN, at least, right? Like just like there's just that, you made something that wasn't bad. There could have been some more you could have did with it. Maybe did some other stuff, but I had fun with what you did. That I'm just wondering if there's a way that we could kind of get to that, because I think either we're holding people to a higher standard and now they're trying to meet it and it's becoming bad. They're trying to do other ways of trying to get that time out of people, and so the numbers that they see don't really show enjoyment. They just show time used, and which was something that we did for one of our interviews. We had one of our guests say, yeah, like sometimes we measure engagement instead of happiness. And it's like, well, that's the problem. That's why these games are also longer, because the engagement of what they did the last time funneled into what they did today. And then we have other games where it's like they do a good amount of stuff, but it's just so under the bar, like Kong. I know Kong's way bad example. We'll say Hades. I think Hades was actually do a good game. Hades, $25. I was checking for it for what the game give you and everything was exciting. Got a lot of people to play and all that, and it's like, well, should Hades have been $50 more so than Kong being 40? There's I'm
Right.
seeing a lot of stuff where it feel like, I think because there's no standard or something that people can just work towards, that we're getting so many different varieties, and it just feels like a lot of people are just having problems playing games. In this coming year, like, while there's a lot of good products, I think 2023 has been a really good year for a lot of good
Stacked
games.
year, yeah.
There has been some terrible stuff that has come out in 2023 that is like, I feel like you should have known. I'm not gonna say that everybody who was involved with this or was just oblivious until like, oh man, I didn't think people would have been so hard on the game after the fact. And it's like, really? Like, you couldn't see that? Like, I understand that us as customers, we all have our own thoughts. We have our own feelings on stuff. But I also feel like there's sometimes where the customer is right, and then they'd be like, you know what, who could this been enjoyable for? If I can't get my kid to play it, obviously I'm not going to play it. It's like, and I think that should have been a good example. But that's my closing thoughts on it. I think we get to this point where it's like, we have to, if games become $80, I think we need to find out, like, okay, what consists
Is
of an
$80.
$80 game? Because honestly, I think it's already here because of deluxe games. That games are $80 and $90 for digital content editions. So I feel like we're already in the era of $80, $90 games. And I think we just lost X, which I think that kind of hit right on schedule.
Yeah.
Well, that's my closing thoughts. Chris, do you have any closing thoughts?
I say trust your gut when it comes to these video games before you put your money there, stuff like that. Read not even reviews, but just previews about them and stuff like that. What's going on? And as for publishing side, when it comes to these games, you're going to charge $70. Take a moment to sit with your Q&A teams and have a real sit down with them. Because if your Q&A team is lying to you about this game and it's not working right, then you're going to have to look into finding new Q&A people. But if they're trying to tell you something and you go, we need to make the money, so we're just going to whatever, then you're going to end up with more cost in the long run.
Oh, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Like whether, because, and maybe it's a question for next time. I'll just say it here so we can remember. Like, should game developers have external QA teams?
That's a good one.
I will have to get into that because I know internal ones have their issues as well as the issues of really trying to add, the type of value, but also in the other way. And yeah, we're just kind of have to kind of get back with it. But I think that's a good place to start. Everybody, really appreciate it. Who watching the video today? If you really like the conversation, really like the topic, don't forget to hit the like button, share this video with everybody, and subscribe to the channel for some other podcasts. We're going to be hopefully pushing out some more content, but we really do hope you enjoyed this one. We actually went way over time than what we thought we were going to go into. So editing this, that's probably going to suck.
And X is back.
But I'm not sure if they can see him because he came back as a producer. So
Oh.
I don't think they might be able to see him. We can see him, but it's all good. You actually look better for all intents and purposes. Is that your phone? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was probably it. But with everything being said, everybody, we really do appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you next time.